September had some strong non-sport sales on eBay. In fact, one of the cards I'm going to show you guys today sold for $10,000, and that's nowhere near the highest selling price of this card in the past. So some rules for this video. All cards for vintage non-sports, I consider 2,000 the threshold. So it has to be earlier than that. No duplicated cards. If there's a variant or an autograph, that's perfectly okay. And since most non-sports cards are still raw, we allow graded and raw cards in these videos. And if you want to learn even more about vintage non-sports cards, I have a Facebook group. So vintage non-sports card collectors. We're approaching 2.3K members right now. Buy, sell, trade, learn from others. There's people way smarter than I am on the non-sports side of things. People that have been collecting 30, 40 years, international collectors, and much more in this group. So if you want to join, I'm going to post the link down below in the comment section as well as the description. And have some fun in there because we're a global community and there's a ton of knowledge if you're trying to jump into the non-sports space. All right, up first, we have this 1959. I'm going to butcher this. This is a German card. I believe it's Heinerl. And there's a few different Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse cards within this set. This is actually a pretty high grade at being a 7. And it sold for $1,300. I'm not going to lie, though. The image on it is a little creepy to me. But regardless, it is a tougher Disney card to find. In the number 24 spot, the 1952 Look and See John D. Rockefeller. There's 8 PSA 8s and 2 9s. This one sold for $1,325. There's a few sales of this card around the $1,000 range, and then also a few years ago, another one I believe did like $1,200 when I was doing some research for the 52 Look and See video. Which, by the way, if you want to learn even more about the set, because we're gonna have 2 Look and See cards within this video, I have a full video on that, and I know the set videos aren't as popular as these top 25 videos, but if you do want to learn more about non-sports, I have that video available for you guys. Up next is a 1905 Kousis George Washington. Actually, this is a card I still need in my personal collection, so if you do have a Kousis Washington, or if you know someone that has a bunch of Kousis cards, there's stuff that I'm still trying to build out. I really like these. So they're a Malta release. They look very similar to Ogden cards. A 6 is a very high grade within this set. Most of them you're going to find are going to be in that 1 to 2 grade shape. There wasn't a lot of these that were produced, and a lot of them do have handwriting on the back. There was a collector in Malta that would write numbers on these with pen. So you'll find those with either MK qualifier or FSGC 115. So I'm thinking that this is the highest Kousis sale because I do follow the set pretty well. There hasn't been a Lincoln that sold in a while, and I wasn't familiar with any other Kousis cards that sold over $1,000. So this is a really, really cool sale. You might be wondering where Malta is. So this is the country of Malta. So we have Italy above it, and then we have this country right here, which I'm going to be making a video on because I actually got scammed on a card. Well, I'm not going to cover it now, but we'll talk about it in another video. But there's a card scam out of there. So between Europe and then also Africa, and Malta is this country right over here. So you can see how small this is compared to Sicily. Not a lot of cards out of there, but they do have some very passionate collectors. When I was over in Europe, I met one of the bigger collectors out of Malta, and he told me there's a small group, but they love their cards, and I was learning a bunch of different sets from them. So it's a really fun release, and I know I'm ranting about Malta cards, but I really like the Kousis. All right, up next we have a 1962 Mars Attack in an 8. This has to go to someone in the registry. 1476. There is 60 PSA 8s and then also 3 PSA 9s for destroying a dog. Iron Fist. 1991 Marvel Universe. There is 2 that sold this month. Another one sold for $900. One of the listings said Pop 5, another one said Pop 6. And for those that know more about Marvel, can you tell me why this card was really expensive? I thought like the base Marvel Universe stuff like this, and maybe this isn't a base card, weren't this expensive in 10s. I know a few of you guys have helped me out with learning a little bit about the foils, but why is Iron Fist so expensive. I'm not even familiar with either like is he a superhero or a supervillain. I don't know, but please let me know, guys, because I want to learn for other videos. Set I am more familiar with. So, a very popular set on 1935 that features Mickey Mouse with different people. This is probably the most popular one in the set, where he's with Walt's drawing Mickey Mouse, and you have Goofy in the background over here. This is a strong eye appeal too. I'm just gonna say, like, this looks really nice in comparison. Some of the two that you see on the set are pretty junky. This one looks fantastic, and it sold for $14.99. Personally, and this is probably controversial, I'd rather have this card than the 1931 Wills. I've owned 7 or 8 of those Wills. I've never owned this card, and if I had this card in my collection, I'd be fine with it. The Wills, I've sold all of them. Obviously, that would change if I had like an 8 or a 9 on the Wills. Maybe I'd keep it, but regardless, I like this card a lot, and this is a very strong too. 1952 Look and See Rembrandt. So this is, I would assume, the most popular card in the set. It might change long term, but this is short printed. When you think of the Look and Sees, at least on the non-sport side, Rembrandt comes to mind. Look, there's a lot of these out there. Even though it is short printed, Rembrandt has a ton of cards that are earlier that are much scarcer. So it's always funny to me when I see things like this that sell for $1,500. His Ogden, it took me a few years to find, and that card maybe is a $50, $100 card. You go to a 7 of this, it's $1,500. There was also another 7 that sold this month when I was pulling the stats for this video. I think it did $1,100, and I apologize I didn't put it on here, but yeah, he has a lot of other cards out of Europe too. He has a Suckered as well. I believe those are out of Germany. I probably mispronounced it, but regardless, there's a lot of Rembrandt cards, and personally, I think this one's a little overrated, although Look and See is such a popular set for being an American release in 52, same year as the Topps iconic set. All right, a card that I wasn't familiar with, being super scarce, but Semicolon. So there's 2 versions of this card. And the one that sold was a 9 and the no number variation, which sold for $16.75. So if you guys look at the top right, the one that says 355B, not expensive. But the one over here to the left that does not have the number, that is a very expensive error card. I assume it's an error card. If you know more, please let me know. But yeah, $16.75 on this copy. And, I still have to do a lot more research on Garbage Pail Kids. It's its own category, right? You're not going to learn everything out of the gate with cards, and you pick up knowledge over the years. So I still got to jump in and really do a deep dive on Garbage Pail Kids, and maybe I'll make that into a video series eventually in the future. But yeah, very expensive sale, and I love the design on this one, especially for Halloween coming up in a few weeks. Another Garbage Pail, Nasty Nick. I am familiar with this one. First card in that 85 set. This one in a 9 sold for $16.86, which again shows you how popular or how rare this Semicolon card is. 1981 Harrison Ford autograph, known for Star Wars and Indiana Jones. This one sold in a 6 with a 10 autograph, about $2,000. Up in our 15 spot, I think, look, I was split on putting this card into the video because I don't know if this was an accidental buy or like this was a pump or what it was. So this is from 1956 Elvis Presley set, right? The last 6 of this card, which isn't a rare card, by the way, sold for $65. The last 8 sold for $140. I think it's an accidental purchase because card number 1 only does 200 in a 6. So the fact that this did 2,100, and I checked on 130 Point, this sold for $2,100. I don't know. Again, just full transparency. Like when I see weird sales like this, I want to call them out. But this sold for $2,100, so I have to show it in the video. Although this is not a $2,100 card. This is a $2,100 card. Well, technically 2247, 1888, and 76 George Washington in the famous N76 set. I think this is the second best card in the set behind the Lincoln, although I like the design a lot more on the George Washington than the Lincoln. Regardless, this 3 sold for, like I said, 2247. But you know what also sold for 2247? Yeah, the Abraham Lincoln. This is widely considered the best card in the set. And the 2 sold for 2247. Always 1-2, right? Some people prefer Washington, some people prefer Lincoln, but Lincoln does outsell Washington, or at least it has the last few years. Maybe it'll change in the future. Regardless, just for that price point on here, it's still a good looking too, though. Yeah. What I will say, and again, I like shouting out these other videos I have on the channel. I have a full video on the N76 set. If you guys do want to learn a lot more, goes in depth about pop reports, you know, what are the best cards in the set. But I highly suggest you check out that video. You're going to see a lot of James Earl Jones autos. This is the first out of 3 in this video. Legendary actor that played in a lot of different movies, from Star Wars to Field of Dreams. And this one sold for $24.99. This one sold for $2,500. And then let's jump into some honorable mentions before we see another Earl Jones. So up first, N79 Buffalo Bill. This is a 3, which is considered a really good grade for the N79 Poor Boys set. I like this Buffalo Bill. I have a 2 that I paid, I kid you not, like $50 maybe 3 years ago. So I love seeing that this 3 sold for $550. Although I didn't want to upgrade it one day, but I don't think it's going to happen anymore. Edgar Allan Poe. And I'm kicking myself on this because a few years ago I had a chance to buy like 2 or 3 of these, like $100 each, and yeah, $678 now for this Poe. It's very, very pricey, and no, this is about where it's at, because I do know of some private sales of this card. I think in like a 2-ish that have sold for $500. This was, I want to say, the first public in a 1.5 in a while, although I think there was a raw that sold a few months back, so maybe a little high on the 678, but still, Edgar Allan Poe doesn't have a ton of cards in the 1800s. He has 2 Duke cards, the N76, which is probably about triple that price right now. It's about $1,500 in a 2. Mark Twain, I didn't expect this to go for about $600, but yeah, N79 on there. One of the Twain cards I do not have. Another N76 of U.S. Grant, President and Civil War General. This one sold for $735. Another one I thought I was going to upgrade eventually. I have a 2, I want to say. There's been a few Grant sales recently, 3s and 4s, maybe even a 5, via different auction houses. I probably should have put the comps on here, but I did not, so I apologize. I'll do that next time. Thomas Jefferson in a 3. Third U.S. president. This one sold for $761. All right, off of the N76s, N79s, stuff I really like, so I had to show a lot of these. Peril in the Jungle, the last 7 of this card did $1,100. This sold for $918. 59 Stooges of Mo. You'll see Curly a little bit later, but this one sold for $1,000. 1990 Marvel Universe box, 36 packs, and you can find holograms in here, which, if you've been watching the series, the holograms, they sell for a lot of money in tents. You can find this box. It sold for $1,200. 1885 Larkin, Abraham Lincoln. Why I show this is there's an auction that recently ended with the full set of the Larkins, and the Lincoln looked like it was in a 1.5, and that sold for $4,500. This Lincoln 4 sold for $1,200. And you might recognize this card from a little bit earlier, but this is the O-Pee-Chee version. Much tougher to find and higher grade. The one earlier sold for 2, but looked way nicer. This is a 2.5 O-Pee-Chee. It's tougher to find, but it sold for $1,250. Another Mickey Mouse card, 1929 Juncosa. Probably butchered that. I'm not even going to try the next line. But this one sold for $800. When I was doing research on this card, there's actually a YouTuber that has the full set. I want to say it's like a Pokemon YouTuber. So if you want to learn more about the set, highly suggest that, because he talked about purchasing it. And Transformers packs, 23 sealed packs, $1,800. Lastly, I think this is the last honorable mention. 1966 Batman and Robin, both 8 OCs, the two best cards in the set, 1738. Well, one more, I think. The 1977 Star Wars PSA 8 graded set, $8,000. All right, now we're jumping into our top 10. So up first, Adam Bomb, most popular Garbage Bill Kids card probably of all time. I mean, they reprint this card almost every year. $25.50 for this being in a 9. Up next, a Carrie Fisher autograph from the Wonder Bread. It does look pretty nice for a Wonder Bread, but you do find a lot of these in high grade. This one sold for $3,000. Curly, the most popular out of the Three Stooges, $32.15 on this 8. 1931 Walt Disney, also in an 8. This one sold for $39.38. There has been 2 9 sales within the last year or so, and those 9s were what, 40,000 ish. I've covered them. One was in a Heritage, and I think another one was, one was definitely in Heritage. I can't remember the other one was at. Maybe it was Golden. I didn't cover the Golden one. 1977 Luke Skywalker in a 9. Most popular 1977 Star Wars card. This one sold for $43.71. We're approaching our top 5 now. Darth Vader, another James Earl Jones autograph. This is a nice looking card though. It has an 8 with a 9 auto. This one sold for $5,000. 1966 Batman card number 1. There's 13 PSA 9s out there, 61 PSA 8s. I do know the 9 in this sold at Heritage, and this one sold for $5,000. Jumping into the 3 spot, one of those holograms, right? Maybe you buy that box to try to get the hologram, because this Spider-Man sold for $63.27 in a 10 grade. Superman, last card in the set, number 5. Not number 5, but a PSA 5. Covered this card extensively on the channel. Usually if card number 1 or this one sells, they're always going to make the list because they're expensive, but have not covered a 5, and this sold for $6,600, which is one of the highest sales from this 1940 Superman set of all time. And jumping into the number 1 card, check this out. Wizard of Oz in an 8. I did not expect this sale. Listen, I have cards from A&M Wicks. A lot of them are going to be nice with corners, but the surface is messed up. I know someone that has a 7.5 and an 8 on that. He also told me that when we were talking through DMs, but I have the Hitchcock, same manufacturer, but I've also noticed that too, because I've owned 2 or 3 of those. But it's tough to find these in high grade. I will say that. Did I expect this card to sell for $10,000? Absolutely not. Yeah, there's 2 size variations of this. There's a larger one, and then there's also a smaller one. I'm kind of speechless that this sold for $10,000. Great for the non-sport side of things, but I just never thought of this as a 5-figure card in an 8. But I mean, as a non-sports collector, you gotta be happy with those type of sales. But this was not on my bingo card. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you're new here, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna put last month's video on the screen right now, so if you guys want to check it out, really appreciate it. And thank you to the following channel members.